Let's talk about one of the wildest stories in the Indian startup world, Paytm. You remember it, right? They launched the biggest IPO in the country's history. And then it just crashed and burned. So many investors lost a ton of money. But now, something really interesting is happening. The so-called smart money is quietly sneaking back in. We've got to figure out what's going on.
So this is the big puzzle we're tackling. After this epic collapse, after getting a huge smackdown from the Reserve Bank of India, why on earth are major mutual funds suddenly buying up shares in what looked like a sinking ship? What do they see that the rest of us might have missed?
Okay, to get the comeback story, we first have to wrap our heads around the basic problem. I mean, you've probably used Paytm or PhonePe or Google Pay a dozen times this week. You send money, you scan a QR code at a shop, and it's always free. So you have to ask, how in the world do these companies make any money? Right. The most important number to understand Paytm's old business is right here. It's zero. That's exactly how much they make when you pay a friend or a shopkeeper using UPI. Zilch. Nada. The main thing we all use the app for brings them absolutely no direct income. Well, okay, technically they get a little something. The government wants everyone to use digital payments, so they give them this tiny incentive. We're talking 15 to 30 paise per transaction. I mean, it's something, sure, but it's pennies. It is nowhere near enough to run a huge tech company. And that just reveals the big secret to this whole thing. UPI was never the real business. For Paytm and all its rivals, giving you free payments is just the price of admission. It's how they get you to download the app and come through the front door. The real business is supposed to start once you're inside. For a long time, though, that part of the plan was just not working. And that broken business model, it set the stage for an absolute disaster. Let's rewind to late 2021. Paytm was the golden child of Indian tech. They launched the biggest IPO the country had ever seen. It was supposed to be this huge moment of triumph. Instead, it turned into a complete nightmare. This timeline just shows you how brutal it was. The IPO launches, and right away, the stock just falls off a cliff. It goes from over 2,100 rupees all the way down to under 400. Billions in investor wealth just gone. And then, when you thought it couldn't get any worse, bam! The Reserve Bank of India delivered a knockout blow in early 2024. And look, this was not a little slap on the wrist. The RBI's order was serious. They cited persistent non-compliances and basically shut down the engine of Paytm's old strategy, which was all about using their payments bank to give out loans directly. Just like that, their main plan for making money was gone. But you know, sometimes a crisis forces you to get smart. And out of the ashes of that disaster, a whole new strategy was born. This is where the real turnaround story starts. Paytm had to completely rethink everything, and they made a huge pivot, away from you, the consumer, and toward the shopkeeper, the merchant. And the change was dramatic. I mean, the old model was all over the place. They were trying to be a lender, a movie ticket app, an online shopping mall. It was a mess. The new model, it's laser-focused. It's a B2B or business-to-business play, and it's all about merchants and financial services, with a really clever twist on how they do lending now. And just so we're all on the same page, B2B is simple. It just means their main customer isn't you anymore. It's another business. So instead of trying to sell you a loan through the app, they're now selling really useful services to the millions of shops that have their QR code on the counter. So what does this new B2B model actually look like on the ground? Well, it boils down to a really clear two-part strategy. First, get merchants to pay a monthly subscription fee. And second, act as a matchmaker for loans instead of lending out the money themselves. Let's look at part one. You've all heard it, right? That little gray box in the shop that says, Paytm par rupay prapt hue. That's the sound box. Get this. Paytm has installed over 1.2 crore. That's 12.5 million of these things. And they charge each of those merchants a monthly fee, about 100 to 150 rupees. It's a steady, predictable, recurring revenue stream. Brilliant. Now, the second part is even smarter. Since the RBI banned their own lending, they've shifted to what they call lending as a service. Here's how it works. Step 1. Paytm uses all its data to see which merchants are getting a good, steady flow of money. Step 2. They partner up with a real finance company, an NBFC, that has the cash to lend. And step 3. Paytm connects the good merchant to the lender and takes a nice 3 to 3.5% commission for making the introduction. They get paid without risking any of their own money. So, is this new plan actually working? Oh yeah, the numbers don't lie. In just the last quarter, these two new strategies brought in almost 1,000 crore rupees in revenue. That's about 545 crore from the lending commissions and another 450 crore from all those Soundbox subscriptions. This isn't just a plan on paper, it's a real revenue engine, and it's firing on all cylinders right now. And that brings us right back to our first question. Now that we can see a clear, profitable business model finally taking shape, it starts to make sense why those big institutional investors are getting interested again. They are looking at a totally different company than the one that IPO'd. And you can see the proof right here. Back in March 2024, mutual funds owned less than 7% of Paytm. Fast forward just 3 months to June, and that number more than doubled to 16%. We're talking big players like Mirae Asset and Motilal Oswal making huge buys. That's a massive vote of confidence. So all of this adds up to what investors call the bull case for Paytm. First, they're finally on a clear path to actually making a profit. Their losses are shrinking fast. Second, that network of millions of soundboxes creates a physical moat. It's something that digital-only rivals like Google Pay would find really hard to copy. Third, they're finally focused. They sold off distracting stuff like their ticketing business. And finally, they're still sitting on a massive 12,000 crore rupee cash pile from the IPO to fuel this new strategy. So where does this all leave Paytm and the whole Indian payment scene? Well, it really looks like the market is settling into a three-horse race. You've got Paytm, PhonePe, and Google Pay. And for anyone else trying to break in, the walls are incredibly high now. But look, it's not all clear skies ahead. There are still some real risks, some headwinds. That relationship with the RBI is fragile, and it needs to be repaired. Plus, let's be honest, there's a history of management arrogance that they need to overcome. But the tailwinds are powerful. They are one of only 3 giants in a market where it's almost impossible for a new player to compete. Which brings us to the final question, the big one. After all those years of burning cash, after that spectacular IPO failure, and after a near-death experience with the regulator, has Paytm finally done it? Have they finally cracked the code and found the profitable, sustainable business that was hiding inside their incredibly popular app all along? The smart money seems to think so, and the next few quarters are going to tell us if they were right.